The first man who ever helped me didn't ask my name, didn't ask what I did wrong. He just said, "Have you and your little girl eaten yet?" The cold in Southside Chicago wasn't just in the air, it lived in the bones. It crept through the cracks of boarded windows, settled in the corners of abandoned warehouses, and clung to the worn-out clothes of those who had nowhere else to go. On this particular December night, it found its way into the small chest of 10-year-old Amara Jackson as she wrapped her thin arms around herself, shivering in the silence. The warehouse smelled of rust, mold, and forgotten things. The wind moaned through the broken panels like a voice that had grown tired of screaming. Amara sat curled beside her mother, Latoya, who lay beneath a pile of scavenged blankets, breathing shallowly. Latoya hadn't gotten up all day. Her fever had worsened, and her voice, normally warm and honeyed, had turned into a whisper, cracked by exhaustion and dehydration. Amara pressed the back of her hand to her mother's forehead, just like she'd seen in the movies. It burned.
"Mom," she whispered, "I think you need milk, or soup, or something."
Latoya stirred, barely opening her eyes.
"Stay inside,"
she rasped.
"It's not safe out there, baby." "I know,"
Amara replied. But she also knew that doing nothing wasn't an option. Her mother needed something warm, something more than just prayers and worn-out hope. She looked down at her sneakers, the left one held together by duct tape, and made a decision. The streets outside were a mosaic of broken promises, burnt-out streetlights, graffiti-covered walls, and the ever-present echo of sirens in the distance. Amara kept to the shadows, her breath coming out in white puffs. She walked fast, avoiding eye contact with the few people who lingered on the sidewalks. Her destination was only 3 blocks away, a 24-hour corner store called Tate's Market, one of the few still open this late and this deep into Southside. She'd passed by the store many times before, pressing her nose against the glass to look at the bright aisles and neatly arranged goods. It always smelled like cinnamon and floor cleaner, a strange but comforting mix. As she reached the front door, Amara hesitated. The idea wasn't to steal. She just needed someone to understand. She stepped inside, and the sudden warmth of the heater wrapped around her like a hug. A chime rang above the door. The clerk behind the counter looked up from his phone. He was a large man with tired eyes and a suspicious glance. "You lost, kid?" Amara shook her head, then walked slowly to the dairy section. She picked up a small carton of milk, the cheapest one. Her fingers trembled as she held it to her chest, heart pounding. Before she could walk to the counter, the clerk's voice barked, "Hey! You planning to pay for that?" I just need it from my mom," Amara said, trying to sound brave. "She's sick. I'll pay later. I swear." The man started walking around the counter, frustration on his face. That's when another voice entered the room, smooth, steady, and unmistakably authoritative. "She said she'd pay later. That good enough for you?" The man turned sharply. Standing near the door was a tall man in his 40s, dressed in a charcoal gray overcoat and black gloves. He had the kind of presence that silenced a room, not because he was loud, but because he didn't need to be. His name was Marcus Tate. "This ain't your business, Mr. Tate," the clerk mumbled. Marcus walked forward, pulling out his wallet. "I'll pay for the milk, and whatever else she needs." He looked at Amara. "Grab some soup, too, and bread, maybe some fruit." Amara hesitated. "Really?" He nodded, giving her a small smile. "Yeah, go ahead." She moved quickly, gathering what she could carry. The clerk grumbled, but backed off. Marcus placed several bills on the counter, not waiting for change. When they stepped outside, the cold hit again, sharper than before. Amara looked up at the stranger. "Thank you, mister. You didn't have to do that." Marcus crouched to her level. "What's your name?"
Amara Jackson.
Where's your mom? In the old warehouse off 54th. We've been staying there a while. She's not doing great. Marcus's eyes darkened. He looked down the street, then back at the girl. Amara, you shouldn't be out here alone. And your mom shouldn't be lying sick in a warehouse. Come on. Let's get you both somewhere safe. Amara stepped back instinctively. We don't take charity. Marcus nodded slowly. Neither do I. But I help people when I can. Doesn't mean you owe me anything. There was something in his voice, firm but kind. Amara studied him, weighing her fear against her hope. Finally, she gave a small nod. Okay, she whispered. But just for tonight. Marcus extended his hand. Just for tonight. As they walked together toward his car, the lights of the store flickered behind them, and snow began to fall, soft, steady, like a promise of something new. Marcus's car was a deep black SUV that looked out of place on the cracked streets of Southside. The windows were tinted, the body spotless. Amara hesitated before climbing in, her arms tightly wrapped around the brown paper bag of food. She sat on the edge of the seat, ready to bolt if anything felt wrong. Years of watching her mother navigate danger had taught her one thing: always be prepared. Marcus didn't speak right away. He adjusted the heat, turned on the seat warmers, and glanced at her from the corner of his eye. You cold? Amara nodded. Turn that knob toward the red. Should warm up quick. She did, slowly relaxing as warmth spread through the seat and the air. Her fingers, numb just minutes before, started to tingle. You hungry? He asked. She shook her head, but her stomach growled in betrayal. Marcus smiled slightly and reached into the bag she clutched. Mind if I open this? He asked, holding up a can of chicken noodle soup. Amara hesitated. My mom's the one who's sick. I know, but you need to be strong to help her. One can won't hurt. He reached into the console between the seats and pulled out a small camping-style thermos. I always keep hot water with me. Habit. Within minutes, he had the soup heated in the thermos cup and handed it to her with a plastic spoon from the glove compartment. Amara stared at it, as if unsure it was real. Go ahead, he said gently. She took a sip. The warmth flooded her chest, spreading like sunlight through her frozen insides. She didn't speak, but her eyes said everything. They drove in silence for a few blocks. The streets were quieter now. Most people had retreated indoors, either from the cold or from the violence that often came with nightfall. So, Marcus finally said, you and your mom staying in that warehouse off 54th? She nodded. Anyone else with you? No, just us. Marcus gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. That place isn't safe. You know that, right? She didn't have a choice. She tried shelters, but they were full, or not good. He nodded. He knew what not good meant. Overcrowded, unsafe, filled with people barely holding on to their sanity. She's not lazy, Amara said suddenly, fiercely. She used to work. She got hurt. I believe you, Marcus said calmly. I'm not here to judge, just trying to understand. They pulled up in front of the warehouse, barely more than a shell of a building. Graffiti covered most of the outer walls. A chain-link fence surrounded it, but it was more suggestion than barrier. Marcus parked along the curb. Amara turned to him. Don't come in, okay? She gets scared easy. She doesn't trust people. Marcus nodded. I'll wait here. She climbed out with the bag and disappeared behind the side gate. Marcus leaned back in his seat, watching the street alert. After a few minutes, the passenger door creaked open again. It wasn't Amara. LaToya Jackson stood in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes sunken but alert. She wore a long coat over layers of clothing that hung from her thin frame. Her hair was pulled back hastily, and her breath came in slow, deliberate pulls. You the man who gave my daughter food? She asked, voice gravelly. Yes, ma'am, Marcus said, turning off the engine. Name's Marcus Tate. I own the market on 55th and Lawrence. She squinted. I know that store. She came in tonight, looking for milk. Said you were sick. LaToya looked past him toward the heater vents still blowing warm air. And now you're sitting outside our warehouse at midnight. Why? I don't like kids going hungry. And I don't like women sleeping in warehouses when I've got an extra room sitting empty. LaToya's jaw tensed. You a social worker? No. Government? No. Church? He gave a half smile. Not lately. Then what, you think you can save us? No, ma'am, he said gently. But I can offer a safer place to sleep. Just for tonight. No pressure. If it doesn't feel right, I'll leave. She didn't move for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she opened the back door and climbed in without another word. Amara followed quietly, carrying her mother's coat and an old duffel bag. The three of them sat in silence for several heartbeats. Then Marcus started the engine again. I got a spare condo, uptown. It's not fancy, but it's warm. And safe. LaToya looked at him through the rearview mirror. You always pick up strangers like this? No, Marcus said. But I had a sister once. She didn't make it. She needed help and nobody gave it to her, so now I try to be the man I wish she'd met. LaToya didn't respond, but her eyes softened. They drove north, the city changing block by block. The lights got brighter, the streets cleaner. For the first time in weeks, Amara leaned back in her seat and let her eyes close. Marcus didn't say anything else. He just drove, steady hands on the wheel, carrying two strangers towards something they hadn't felt in a long time, the possibility of peace. The elevator groaned as it rose to the 8th floor of the apartment complex. It wasn't luxury, but it was a far cry from the warehouse they had left behind. The building was clean, well-lit, and smelled faintly of lemon floor polish. Amara clutched her mother's hand tightly, while LaToya stood tense, shoulders rigid beneath her coat. Marcus pressed the button without a word, giving them space. He didn't try to make small talk. He knew this wasn't the kind of night that welcomed easy conversation. When the elevator doors opened, they stepped into a quiet hallway with tan carpeting and soft overhead lights. Marcus led them to a dark wooden door near the end. This is it, he said, unlocking it with a small beep from a key fob. I had the unit staged a while back, just haven't rented it out yet. You'll have some privacy here. He pushed the door open and stepped aside. LaToya hesitated before walking in, her body poised like a deer about to bolt. The apartment was modest, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, but clean and furnished. The heat was already on, and the faint hum of central air filled the silence. A small couch, a worn but comfortable-looking armchair, and a simple wooden table stood in the living area. The kitchen, visible from the front door, held a coffee maker, microwave, and stocked cabinets. Amara moved cautiously toward the couch, then slowly sat, her eyes darting from the lamp to the television to the thick blanket folded neatly on the armrest. You can stay here as long as you need, Marcus said, placing the grocery bag on the kitchen counter. No strings, no expectations. LaToya turned to face him. Why? Because I can, he said plainly. Because someone should. She looked at him for a long time, eyes narrowing slightly, not in suspicion, but in search of something. Truth, maybe. Motive. She didn't find anything sinister, which only made her more uneasy. No one does something like this without wanting something back, she said finally. Marcus didn't flinch. Most people don't. I'm not most people. Silence settled in. Amara yawned, pulling her knees to her chest. Marcus took a step back toward the hallway. I'll be in the unit next door. I keep this one ready for out-of-town staff when needed. If you need anything at all, just knock. Otherwise, I'll give you your space. LaToya said nothing, but her hand moved to rest gently on Amara's back.
Marcus left quietly, closing the door behind him with a soft click.
An hour later, LaToya stood in the small kitchen, watching the microwave spin a bowl of soup. She still hadn't taken her coat off. Her body ached from weeks of sleeping on concrete, but her mind buzzed too loudly for rest. Amara lay curled on the couch under the thick blanket, already asleep. The warmth had knocked her out quickly, her breathing soft and even. LaToya had tucked her in like she used to back when they still had a real bed. That memory hurt more than she expected. The microwave beeped. LaToya pulled the bowl out, cradling it in her hands. She didn't sit, she stood, by the window, staring out into the city and slowly sipped. How had they ended up here? Not just the apartment, but this moment, this life. Years ago, she'd dreamed of becoming a counselor, someone who could help others heal. But Calvin had taken those dreams from her piece by piece, first with words, then with fists, then with the fear that never left. After Amara was born, LaToya had promised herself she'd get out, and she did. But survival wasn't freedom. Not really. She thought about Marcus. His eyes had been steady but not cold. He spoke like a man who had carried his own weight and had learned how to carry others. That scared her more than cruelty ever had. Kindness was dangerous. Kindness could make you trust again. She walked quietly into the second bedroom, flipped the switch. The room smelled like clean linen and furniture polish. There was a full-size bed, a simple dresser, a reading lamp. No personal items. It was like a blank slate. LaToya didn't undress. She lay on the bed fully clothed, arms crossed over her chest, staring at the ceiling. It had been months since she'd slept on a real mattress. But comfort didn't come easy when you'd spent so long waiting for the next knock, the next threat. Across the hall, Marcus sat on his own couch, reading an old notebook. It was his sister's, Janelle. She'd died 10 years ago after running away from an abusive boyfriend. Her name wasn't in any headlines. No candlelight vigils, just a small blurb in the Tribune and a photo of the alley where she was found. Marcus had built his business from that pain. Tate's Market had started with a single store and a mission to keep people like Janelle from falling through the cracks. Food, shelter, jobs. He knew he couldn't save everyone, but if he could change just one ending, it would be worth it. He closed the notebook and looked at the wall that separated him from LaToya and her daughter. He didn't know their full story yet, but he recognized the look in LaToya's eyes, the wary strength of a woman who had been hurt and refused to break. He hoped she'd stay long enough to believe she was safe. Back in the guest apartment, LaToya finally allowed her eyes to close. Outside, the city kept moving, cars humming down streets, sirens wailing in the distance. But inside that small apartment, for the first time in a long time, there was nothing chasing them. No footsteps at the door, no cold seeping through the floor. Just quiet. And warmth. And space to breathe. LaToya awoke with a jolt. For a brief second, she didn't know where she was. Her eyes darted to the ceiling, to the faint hum of the heater, to the soft mattress beneath her back. No flickering light bulb overhead, no concrete floor, no cold air biting at her skin. Just warmth. And silence. It was morning. She lay there, still and blinking, as the realization sank in. No one had screamed in the night. No banging on doors, no sirens jolting her upright. For the first time in what felt like forever, she had slept through the night. A soft rustle came from the hallway. LaToya sat up instantly, muscles tense. But it was only Amara, tiptoeing in with a sleepy smile and messy braids. She was wearing one of the oversized t-shirts they had found in the dresser drawer. Clean, soft, unfamiliar.
"Morning, Mama,"
Amara whispered. LaToya let out a long breath and opened her arms. Amara climbed onto the bed and curled into her mother's side. For a few moments, they just lay there in silence, soaking in the stillness like it was something fragile and rare.
"You slept okay?"
LaToya finally asked. Amara nodded.
"I didn't dream."
Latoya gently stroked her daughter's hair. That's good, baby.
I don't want to leave,
Amara said, her voice small. We're not leaving. Not yet. By 8 a.m., Latoya was standing in the small kitchen, sipping hot coffee Marcus had left outside their door. Alongside it was a brown bag with 2 breakfast sandwiches, 2 apples, and a note. No rush. Just breathe. M. She set the note aside and carried a sandwich over to Amara, who was now sitting on the couch watching a cartoon with the volume low. Her feet dangled just above the floor. Latoya studied her for a long moment. How many mornings like this had Amara never had? No fear, no yelling, just a cartoon, a warm blanket, and breakfast. It wasn't fancy, but it felt sacred. Later that morning, a soft knock came at the door. Latoya tensed, stepping between Amara and the door before peeking through the peephole. It was Marcus, wearing a plain hoodie and jeans, holding a binder in one hand. She opened the door halfway. "Morning," he said. "Didn't mean to intrude. Just wanted to drop off something you might find useful." She raised a brow. "What is it?" He handed her the binder. "Resources, shelters, therapy options, legal aid, programs for single moms. I used to give these out a lot when I worked with community outreach." Latoya flipped through it briefly. Everything was printed neatly and organized. Tabs labeled housing, healthcare, education, safety. He wasn't just offering charity. He was offering tools. "I thought you ran a grocery business," she said. Marcus smiled faintly. "I do, but the market's more than just food. It's a kind of bridge between where people are and where they want to be." She hesitated. "You always help people like this?" "Not everyone," he said plainly. "But when I see someone trying like hell to survive, yeah, I try." Latoya nodded slowly. "Thanks." He started to turn away, then paused. "I was thinking, if you're up for it, maybe you'd want to walk over to the market with me later. Show you the place. Let Amara pick out a snack or 2. No pressure." Latoya didn't answer immediately. But Amara, who had been peeking around the corner, perked up at the word snack. Marcus chuckled. "Offer stands. I'll be next door." The walk to Tate's Market was only a few blocks, but it felt longer with Amara skipping ahead, pointing out birds and flowers peeking through sidewalk cracks. The sun was high, and the July heat was creeping in. Still, it was bearable, and for the first time in a while, Latoya didn't feel like she was being watched. The market was bigger than she expected. It looked like an old brick warehouse that had been converted into a community space. Inside were shelves of fresh produce, pantry staples, toiletries, even a small corner for school supplies and baby needs. Everything was labeled clearly, priced modestly. It didn't feel like a business. It felt like a lifeline. Marcus greeted employees by name, helped restock a display of apples, then introduced Latoya and Amara to an older woman working the counter. "This is Mama D," he said. "She basically runs the place when I'm running late." Mama D smiled wide, her face lined with warmth. "Well, look at you two. You staying nearby?" "Just visiting," Latoya said quietly. "Well, you take your time. Let that little one pick out whatever she likes, on the house." Amara gasped and looked at Latoya for permission. "One thing," Latoya said, trying not to smile. Amara dashed toward the snack aisle. Marcus leaned on the counter beside Latoya. "You okay?" "I don't know," she said. "I don't know what okay feels like anymore." "That's fair," he replied, "but I'll tell you what. It starts like this. Small things. A safe place to sleep. A full stomach. A morning without fear." Latoya looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You want a job?" he asked suddenly. "Part-time, light work. Stocking, maybe cashier later. Only if you want to. You set the hours." She blinked, taken aback.
You don't even know me.
Marcus met her gaze. I know enough. That night, back in the apartment, LaToya tucked Amara into bed and lingered at the doorway longer than usual. The little girl was asleep within minutes, her chest rising and falling in rhythm with the hush of the city. LaToya sat alone in the living room, binder on her lap, flipping through the pages. She didn't know how long they'd stay. She didn't know if she could ever trust this new rhythm. But for now, she had shelter. She had a plan. She had a man next door who saw her not as a victim, but as a person trying to build again. She closed the binder and leaned back, the couch creaking beneath her. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't just surviving. She was starting to live. The next morning, LaToya woke before the sun. The apartment was quiet, still wrapped in early morning darkness. She sat up on the couch where she had fallen asleep, with the binder still open across her lap. Pages on legal assistance and trauma therapy were creased under her arm. She rubbed her temples and glanced toward the bedroom door where Amara slept, undisturbed. She moved carefully, avoiding the floorboards that creaked, and slipped into the kitchen. The coffee pot was already warm. A sticky note was taped to the counter. Help yourself. I'm off to the farmer's lot. M. She smiled faintly. The way Marcus respected her space, never pushing, never prying, made her nervous and grateful. It wasn't the kind of attention she was used to. Her ex had always made her feel watched, judged, owned. This felt different. Trust wasn't easy, but it had to start somewhere. By noon, LaToya found herself behind the checkout counter at Tate's Market, nervously scanning a line of groceries while Marcus stood beside her, guiding her through the system. "You're doing fine," he said, nodding toward the screen. "This part's easy. What matters is how you treat folks." "I haven't worked since before Amara was born," she admitted. "You're already working," he said, "just by being here." Customers flowed in, a mix of older women, construction workers, teenagers buying soda and chips. Many greeted Marcus with familiarity. A few eyed LaToya curiously, but no one asked questions. One older man with a veteran's hat nodded toward her and said, "Good to see new faces around here." She offered a polite smile. It wasn't much, but it was something. Amara sat nearby at a small reading table with a coloring book Mama Dee'd given her. Every so often, she'd glance up to check if her mom was still there. LaToya would wave. Amara would smile, then go back to coloring. She hadn't smiled like that in weeks. On her break, LaToya stood outside near the alley, sipping water and watching kids ride by on bikes. Marcus joined her, wiping his hands on a towel. "You holding up?" he asked. "Yeah, it's not bad." He leaned against the brick wall. "You don't have to prove anything to me, you know." She looked over, guarded. "What makes you think I'm trying to?" He shrugged. "'Cause I used to do the same thing. Stay busy, keep moving. Work so hard no one could see I was breaking inside." LaToya studied him for a moment. "You got people? Family?" "Not really. Grew up in foster care. A couple of good placements, a lot of bad ones. This neighborhood kind of raised me." "That why you opened the market?" "Partly. And because I know what it feels like to go to bed hungry, and to have no one ask why." There was silence between them, comfortable this time. LaToya nodded slowly, letting the words settle. "You think this is safe?" she asked, almost a whisper. "For Amara, I mean, for me?" Marcus didn't answer right away. "No place is perfect. But this? It's safer than where you were. And we'll make it safer still." LaToya exhaled, not quite trusting the words, but not rejecting them either. Later that evening, after her shift, Marcus offered to walk them back. The three of them strolled down the block. Amara held a small bag of oranges, swinging it like it was treasure.
Miss Mama D said I can help organize the coloring books next time, she said excitedly. You'd make a great assistant, Marcus replied with a grin.
LaToya watched them, something soft blooming in her chest. Marcus wasn't trying to be a hero. He wasn't stepping in to replace anyone. He just showed up, consistently, gently. That, more than anything, unsettled her. When they reached the building, Amara ran ahead to get the door. Marcus paused on the sidewalk. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said, turning to leave. LaToya hesitated. Then,
"Wait."
he turned back.
"You meant what you said about helping make this place safer?"
"Every word."
"Then I think I'm ready to talk to someone about the case, the custody, maybe press charges."
Marcus didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just nodded, slow and steady. "Okay. I know someone at the advocacy center. She's good. She'll listen. I'll connect you." LaToya met his eyes.
"Thank you."
This time, she meant it without hesitation. That night, after Amara fell asleep with an orange clutched in one hand, LaToya sat at the small table by the window and opened the binder again. But this time, she reached for a pen. She started circling numbers, highlighting names, making notes in the margins. These weren't just resources anymore. They were steps. Small ones, yes, but real. She looked out the window. The city buzzed in the distance. Sirens, music, someone arguing a block away. The night wasn't perfect, but it wasn't terrifying either. And that made all the difference. She closed the binder, pulled the blanket around her shoulders, and whispered into the quiet. "We're gonna be okay." For the first time, she believed it. The next morning, LaToya sat alone at the kitchen table, phone in hand. Her thumb hovered over a number she had just saved. Valerie King, Domestic Violence Advocacy Center. She hadn't called yet. Outside the window, the streets of Southside Chicago came to life. A bus hissed to a stop. A woman pushed a stroller past a man shouting about the bowls. Life kept moving, indifferent to the war still raging inside her. Amara was in school now. The building was just a few blocks away, close enough to calm her nerves, far enough to feel like a leap of faith. It had taken everything in her not to turn around after drop-off. But Marcus had walked with them, and his quiet presence helped still the storm in her chest. Now it was just her, and the phone, and the ghosts. She finally pressed call. One ring, two. A woman's voice answered, calm, professional. "Advocacy Center, this is Valerie." LaToya froze. Her mouth opened, then shut again. "Hello? Anyone there?" LaToya cleared her throat. "Yes, sorry. My name is LaToya. Marcus Tate gave me your number." A pause, then warmth. "Ah, Marcus. He's sent me some strong women before. How can I help?" LaToya closed her eyes. I think I need to talk to someone about what I've been through. My daughter and I, we left. It got bad. Real bad." Valerie's tone shifted, softened. "I hear you. You're safe now?" "For the moment." "Then that's a strong start. You don't have to tell me everything now, just what you're ready for." LaToya hesitated. "He still has my documents, my ID, Amara's birth certificate. He could show up here, say I kidnapped her." "That's common," Valerie replied gently. "They use paperwork as chains. But there are ways around that. Legal ways. Do you want to come in for an intake appointment?" LaToya swallowed hard. "Yes, please." "Tomorrow morning?" "Yes." "Good. We'll be ready. You just did something incredibly brave, LaToya." She ended the call and stared at the phone like it might bite her. Brave didn't feel like the right word. Exhausted did. That evening, as the sky turned gold and then purple, Latoya stood in front of the small mirror above the bathroom sink. She ran a hand over her hair, still damp from the quick shower, and tried to decide what to wear tomorrow. She hadn't dressed up in months. Clothes had become armor, then camouflage. Now, she didn't know what they were anymore. Amara was in the living room, humming along with a cartoon on the tablet Marcus had given her to use. Just temporary, he'd said. You'll need quiet time, too. Latoya picked up her phone again, tempted to scroll through old texts. She had deleted most of them after they fled, but one thread remained, pinned to the top by force of memory more than any rational reason. Darius. The last message from him was 3 weeks ago. You think you can run? Amara is mine, too. Don't make me come find you. She hadn't responded, but her fingers hovered now, trembled. She wanted to scream at him, to say he had no idea how deeply he'd broken things, that Amara cried in her sleep now, that Latoya flinched when doors slammed, that every knock made her heart seize. But she said nothing. Instead, she tapped block and confirmed it. Then, finally, deleted the thread. It was a small act, but it felt like cutting off a tether she hadn't realized was still wrapped around her throat. The next morning, she dressed in jeans and a clean navy blouse. It was nothing fancy, but it made her feel composed. Amara wore her favorite headband with the tiny purple stars and held her mom's hand tighter than usual on the way to school. Before they reached the gates, Amara pulled Latoya down for a whisper. Will you be okay while I'm here? Latoya blinked. That's my line, baby. Amara smiled. Miss Mama D says you're strong. Latoya laughed softly. I'm trying. She kissed her daughter's forehead and watched as she ran inside, backpack bouncing. Then she turned and headed for the bus stop. The advocacy center sat inside a refurbished brownstone. The lobby smelled like lemon oil and hope. Valerie met her at the front desk, a black woman in her 50s with silver-touched locks and eyes that had seen everything and learned to carry it. They sat in a private room, painted in warm earth tones. A box of tissues waited on the table. Latoya tried not to need them, but as she began to talk about Darius, about the yelling, the threats, the control, the day she left, her voice cracked. The words poured out in fragments. Not all of it, but enough. Valerie listened without interrupting. Only once did she lean forward. Did he ever hurt Amara? Latoya's hands clenched. No, but I was afraid he would. That's why I ran. Valerie nodded. Then you did the right thing. We can help with emergency custody, replace the documents, get you legal support. You're not alone. Not alone. Latoya wasn't sure she believed it yet, but she let herself imagine what it might feel like. Back home that afternoon, she sat on the edge of the bed as Amara colored beside her. Did you go to work today? Amara asked. No, somewhere else. Somewhere to help us. Amara looked up. Like a doctor? Kind of. A doctor for things you can't see. Amara considered that. Then she leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. I'm glad you're getting better, Mommy. Latoya wrapped her arms around her daughter, eyes wet but steady. Me too, baby. Saturday morning in Chicago's South Side had its own rhythm, slower, warmer, full of motion but without rush. The corner market near Marcus's building buzzed with quiet purpose. People grabbing fruit, eggs, milk, the kind of small necessities that stitched life together. Latoya held Amara's hand as they stepped inside. The market wasn't fancy, just a narrow aisle of canned goods, a freezer humming in the back, and a handwritten sign that read, "We cash checks, no ID, no problem." A woman behind the counter nodded as they entered. She wore a bull's cap and gold hoops. "Morning." "Morning," Latoya replied, voice steady. Amara tugged on her hand. "Can I pick cereal?" Latoya nodded.
Only one, and no marshmallows. Amara groaned in mock betrayal, but skipped off to the cereal aisle. LaToya moved toward the fridge for milk and juice. Her hand paused on the orange juice when a voice startled her. "Well, damn, look who it is." She turned. A man stood at the end of the aisle, baggy jeans, chain glinting under a half-zipped hoodie, and a face she hadn't seen in 2 years. Reggie, Darius's cousin. Every muscle in LaToya's body stiffened. "Didn't think you were still in the city," Reggie said, taking a slow step closer. She kept her voice calm. "Just getting groceries." He glanced toward Amara, who was oblivious, humming to herself while examining cartoon mascots. Reggie leaned in slightly. "Darius been looking for you. Real upset you just disappeared with his kid." LaToya forced a breath. "This ain't the time, Reggie." "I ain't here to start something." He held up his hands. "Just giving a heads up. He's been talking wild, saying he gonna take it to court. Or maybe not." LaToya narrowed her eyes. "That a threat?" He shrugged. "I'm just saying. You know how he gets when he's mad." She stepped forward, voice firm. "If he wants to see Amara, he can come through a judge. I'm done playing scared." Reggie gave a low chuckle. "You always had that fire. Don't let it get you burned." LaToya didn't flinch. "You tell him this. If he comes near me or my daughter, he better be ready for police and lawyers." He studied her a beat longer, then gave a half-smile. "Suit yourself." And with that, he turned and walked out, the bell on the door jingling in his wake. LaToya stood frozen for a second, then forced her breathing to slow. Amara came skipping back. "I picked the one with the bear. He's not scary." LaToya smiled tightly. "Good choice. Let's check out, okay?" Later that day, she sat with Marcus on the steps in front of the building. A cup of tea steamed in her hands. She told him everything. About Reggie, the words, the veiled threat. Marcus listened in silence, nodding once in a while, jaw tight. "He's watching," she said. "Maybe not him directly, but we're not invisible." "You never were," Marcus replied. "You just stopped being easy to find." She looked out at the street. "He said Darius might come after custody." Marcus leaned back, arms on his knees. "You've already started the paperwork, right? Valerie's helping you document everything?" "Yes. And she said the emergency order could come through next week." "Then that's your shield. But if he pushes outside the law, I have people who can make sure he stays away. Not like that," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "I mean, people who understand protection, the legal kind. And the other kind, if needed." LaToya sighed. "I don't want violence. You don't need it. You just need to know you're not alone. Not anymore." She looked at him, eyes softening. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." That night, after Amara went to sleep, LaToya sat at the kitchen table with a pen and a sheet of notebook paper. No distractions, just her and the silence. She started writing a letter, not to Darius, but to herself. "Dear me, you survived. You walked out. You didn't explode or scream or break his windows. You just picked up your child and left. You left the man who said you'd never make it without him, the man who twisted love into fear. You proved him wrong. That doesn't mean the fear is gone. It means you're still standing, despite it. Tomorrow you'll wake up again, and you'll keep building this new life, brick by brick. You'll smile for Amara, and it'll get easier. One day, you'll laugh without guilt, sleep without flinching. This pain isn't permanent. and neither is he. Love me. She folded the paper and placed it in a small envelope, then tucked it in her wallet. A promise, a message, a seed. The next day, a flyer appeared on the community board downstairs. Self-defense classes for women, sponsored by the Center for Empowerment and Safety. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. No experience needed. Free childcare during class. Latoya stared at it for a long time. When Marcus passed by with groceries, he caught her looking. "You thinking of going?" "I don't know." "You should." She raised an eyebrow. "You trying to get rid of me for an hour?" "I'm trying to help you build something stronger than fear." She pulled the flyer down and folded it into her bag. Maybe she would go. Maybe it was time. The fluorescent lights in the community center buzzed low overhead. Mats were laid out across the hardwood floor. Women of all sizes and ages stretched or chatted nervously, most wearing sweatpants and old t-shirts. At the far end of the room stood a tall, athletic woman with cornrows and a calm, grounded presence. "Welcome," she called out. "I'm Coach Bree. This class is about more than fighting. This is about reclaiming your space." Latoya lingered near the edge, arms crossed, feeling her heart drum in her chest. She had almost turned back twice on the walk over. Even now, part of her wanted to disappear into the wall. But she didn't. She stayed. Coach Bree walked the room as she spoke. "Most of you are here because something happened. Or almost did. Maybe it was a stranger. Maybe someone you knew. Either way, you're tired of being afraid. This space belongs to you now." Latoya exhaled slowly and stepped forward. The warm-up was simple. Stretches, balance drills, a few basic punches. Nothing fancy. Still, Latoya felt her muscles ache. Muscles she hadn't used in years. But there was something satisfying in the burn. A kind of quiet rebellion with every movement. Coach Bree moved beside her. "Good stance," she said. "You boxed before?" Latoya shook her head. "Only in my dreams." The coach chuckled. "Well, dreamers make the best fighters. They already see a different future." Latoya smiled, small but genuine. Halfway through the session, they paired off to practice a wrist escape technique. Latoya was matched with a younger woman named Kiara. Mid-20s, short braids, nervous energy in her eyes. Coach Bree demonstrated. "If someone grabs your wrist, don't pull away. Rotate toward their thumb and step back. Use your hips. Power doesn't come from arms. It comes from intent." Kiara grabbed Latoya's wrist, hesitantly. "Go ahead," Kiara said. "I won't hold tight." Latoya paused. Then she inhaled sharply, turned her wrist inward, stepped back, and broke free in one swift move. "Whoa!" Kiara laughed. "You got that angry mom energy." Latoya chuckled. "You should see me when someone finishes the juice and puts the empty carton back." They laughed, really laughed. It surprised them both. Later, the women sat in a loose circle, catching their breath. Coach Bree clapped her hands once. "Let's talk." There was silence at first. Then someone spoke. "I was pushed in my building last year. He didn't get far. But since then, I don't take the stairs anymore." Another voice joined. "My ex still drives by my house. I pretend I don't see him." Latoya listened, feeling the weight of each story. Then, quietly, she said, "Mine said if I ever left, he'd make me regret it. Said no one would believe me, that I'd come crawling back." A few women nodded. One reached out, squeezing Latoya's hand gently. "But I left anyway," she added. Coach Bree looked around. "This is why we fight. Not to win every battle, but so we never forget we deserve to stand, and to stay standing." After class, Latoya walked into the night air, her body sore but her spirit oddly light. The city hummed around her, sirens, streetlights, muffled music from a passing car. She felt present in her body in a way she hadn't in years. At home, Amara was asleep on the couch, curled beneath a blanket. Marcus sat nearby reading a book. "You didn't wake her?" Latoya asked quietly. Marcus looked up. "She said she'd wait up, but SpongeBob won that battle." Latoya smiled, gently lifting Amara and carrying her to bed. When she came back out, Marcus had made her tea. "Well?" he asked. She sipped. "It was hard and good, in a weird, painful, healing kind of way." He nodded. "You going back?" "Yeah," she said without hesitation. "Next week, and the one after that." Marcus smiled. "Told you." She looked at him, tilting her head. "Why do you care so much?" He shrugged. "Because someone should have cared sooner. And because I know what it's like to live inside a version of yourself that someone else built for you. It takes work to break out." Latoya stared at her mug. "Sometimes I feel like I'm rebuilding myself with scraps. Even scraps make something beautiful, if you put them together with purpose." The next morning, Latoya dressed for work, her arms aching slightly from the class. At the bus stop, she noticed her reflection in the dirty shelter glass. Something had changed. Not huge, not flashy. But she stood straighter. Her eyes were clearer. At the shelter, the kids greeted her with excitement, especially little Brielle, who clung to her leg like a koala. During snack time, one of the teen moms approached her, Melanie, a quiet 17-year-old with deep bags under her eyes and a 3-month-old baby. "You got a minute?" Melanie asked. "Of course." They sat in the corner near the art table. Melanie hesitated, biting her lip. "I heard you left your ex." Latoya nodded slowly. Melanie looked down. "Mine. He hit me last week. Then cried after. Said he didn't mean it." Latoya stayed silent, letting the girl speak. "He said I make him crazy, that if I left, he'd take the baby." Latoya reached out, gently resting her hand on Melanie's. "You believe him?" Latoya asked. Melanie shook her head. "Not anymore. But I'm scared." "That fear," Latoya said softly, "doesn't mean you're weak. It means you know what's real. But you can still choose yourself." Melanie looked up. "Did it get better? For you?" Latoya didn't lie. "Not right away. But now I'm not afraid every second. And that's something." Melanie nodded. "Thank you." As the girl walked off, Latoya felt her throat tighten. She exhaled slowly. Every fight mattered, and not everyone had to involve fists. The courthouse smelled like a mixture of bleach, old wood, and nerves. Latoya stood in line at the clerk's office, paperwork in hand, heart thudding like a loose drum in her chest. The stack she carried wasn't just papers, it was pieces of her life. Restraining order forms, custody filings, affidavits, a statement from Marcus, and a letter from Amara's school counselor. Each page held truth, but somehow felt like it still wasn't enough. Behind her, a man sighed loudly. "Come on," he muttered. Latoya tightened her grip on the papers. She wasn't in the mood for anyone's attitude, not today. The woman behind the glass, Ms. Jefferson, according to the placard, barely looked up. Her eyes were red from too much computer screen or too little sleep. "Name?" she asked, voice flat. "Latoya Reed." Jefferson began typing. "Purpose of visit?" "I'm filing for a protective order and emergency custody," Latoya said, her voice steadier than she expected. Jefferson paused, looking up. "Okay," she said, slightly more gentle now. "Have you completed Form DC 409 and the custody affidavit?" Latoya held up the pages. Ms. Jefferson nodded. "You'll need to wait for courtroom assignment. They might call you today or early tomorrow." Latoya blinked. "That fast?" She nodded again. "They move fast when kids are involved, especially if there's prior history." Latoya swallowed. "There is." The waiting area was cold, metal chairs lined like dominoes. A TV mounted in the corner played the news with captions on. Latoya tried to focus, but her mind drifted. Back to 2018. To the first time Andre raised his hand. She hadn't believed it at first. It wasn't a full punch, just a shove. He'd grabbed her wrist, yanked her back, said she was acting crazy, said she made him do it. Afterward, he cried, bought flowers, promised it would never happen again. It did. In 2020, it was a closed fist. In 2022, it was hands around her neck. And in 2023, it was almost Amara's arm getting pulled too hard during an argument. That was the night Latoya had whispered to herself in the dark, "You have to leave, or one of you won't survive this." "Ms. Reed." She looked up. A woman in slacks and a navy blazer stood at the doorway. "I'm from Family Court Advocacy. Can we talk for a few minutes?" Latoya followed her to a small office, walls lined with pamphlets and framed posters about domestic violence, child custody rights, legal services. "I'm Janine," the woman said, offering a warm smile. "You're not alone. I'm here to help you through the process." Latoya nodded. "Thank you." Janine reviewed the paperwork. "Your documents are thorough. That helps. You're seeking emergency custody? Have there been threats recently?" Latoya hesitated. "2 voicemails in the last week. One said he'd come get what's his." Janine's brows furrowed. "Did you save them?" "Yeah," Latoya said, pulling out her phone. They listened. Andre's voice was low and angry. "Don't think you can keep her from me. I don't care who's helping you. You're still mine, and she's mine too." Janine's jaw clenched. "This strengthens your case. We'll submit this as supplemental evidence." Back in the waiting room, Latoya checked her messages. One from Marcus. "Let me know when you're done. I'll swing by with lunch." Another from Amara's teacher. "Amara was quiet this morning. Let me know if you'd like us to schedule a check-in with the school counselor." Latoya stared at that one. Amara had always been bright, curious, brave. But lately there'd been shadows behind her eyes. Not just fear, confusion. Latoya knew that her daughter didn't fully understand what was happening, but she felt the shift, the silence, the instability. Latoya texted back, "Yes, a counselor meeting would help. Thank you." Then she tucked her phone away and took a deep breath. An hour passed, 2. Finally, a court clerk appeared. "Ms. Reed, Judge Morales will see you now." She stood, knees stiff, stomach in knots. Courtroom 3B was modest, wood paneling, 2 rows of benches, a large seal of Cook County behind the judge's bench. Judge Morales was in his early 50s, stern eyes but not unkind. He reviewed her documents quietly for a few moments, glasses perched on his nose. "Ms. Reed," he began, "these are serious accusations. Do you have reason to believe your daughter is in immediate danger?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And what are you requesting?" "Temporary full custody, a protection order, and supervised visitation for the father, if any." He nodded. "I'll review everything again, but based on the preliminary documentation and voicemails provided, I'm inclined to approve temporary orders until a formal hearing." Latoya felt her breath release, shoulders lowering slightly. "It's not permanent," he added, "but it's a start. The hearing is set for 2 weeks from today. Be prepared with any additional evidence. A guardian ad litem may also be assigned." She nodded, voice cracking. "Yes, Your Honor. Thank you." When she stepped outside into the summer sun, the air hit her like a blessing. Hot, sticky, full of noise, but it felt like freedom. Marcus was parked across the street in his old Honda Civic, a brown bag of food in the passenger seat. He waved. Latoya climbed in, tossing the papers onto the dashboard. "Well?" he asked. "It's a start," she said. He handed her a sandwich. "Then here's to starting." That night, while Amara did homework at the kitchen table, Latoya filled out more paperwork in silence. Custody hearing prep, child safety plans, and statements from neighbors who had heard shouting through the walls. Amara looked up. "Mom?" "Yeah, baby?" "Do I have to see Daddy again?" Latoya looked into her daughter's eyes. She didn't lie. "Not unless a judge says so. But right now? No. Not for a while." Amara nodded slowly. "Okay." Then softly she added, "I'm glad." Latoya reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Me too." Saturday mornings were sacred. At least they used to be. Back before the chaos, before the threats and court filings, Latoya and Amara would wake up late, cook pancakes, and tend to the little community garden next to their apartment building. The garden was Latoya's idea, her way of reclaiming peace, square foot by square foot, from the concrete jungle of Southside Chicago. That morning, the sky was cloudless, the sun already burning hot against her skin as she knelt in the dirt, pulling weeds. Amara sat on a nearby bench, eating a banana and sketching flowers in a notebook. Latoya found it comforting, this moment of normal, of something hers. Then the gate creaked. She stood up slowly, wiping her hands on her jeans. A man had just entered the garden, early 30s, dark hoodie, low baseball cap, walking too slow to be casual. He didn't belong here. Latoya's instincts sharpened instantly. Her mind filed details like a detective. Black jeans, limp in his left leg, something bulky in his waistband. He walked right past the tomato vines, ignoring the no trespassing sign, and paused near the sunflowers. Latoya stepped in front of Amara. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice calm but alert. The man looked at her, eyes flickering. "You Latoya Reed?" She stiffened. "Who's asking?" He reached into his hoodie. Latoya's breath stopped. Her fingers twitched toward her phone, still in the dirt by the garden bed. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a folded envelope. "From Dre," he said. Then he turned and walked out, limping a little faster now. Latoya watched him disappear down the alley, heart racing. Amara clutched her notebook, eyes wide. "Who was that?" she whispered. "Just someone lost," Latoya said, though she knew that wasn't true. She opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper, lined with Andre's unmistakable handwriting, slanted, angry, rushed. "You think a judge can stop me? You think you're safe now? This ain't over, Toya. You got something that's mine, and I don't wait long." There was no signature. She folded the letter back up, hands trembling. Amara spoke again. "Is it about court?" Latoya nodded slowly. "Yeah, baby, but it's okay. I'll handle it." Back in their apartment, Latoya called Janine from Family Court Advocacy. "I got a letter," she said. "Hand-delivered. It wasn't overtly violent, but it's threatening, and he had someone bring it to my home." Janine exhaled sharply. "That's a violation of the temporary order. I'll alert the judge's clerk and help you file an amended complaint. Did you keep the letter?" "Yes," Latoya said. "I'm going to scan it and send it now." "Good. And, Latoya, don't minimize this. It's escalating." "I know," she said quietly. Marcus came over that afternoon. He brought groceries and stayed for dinner, chopping vegetables with his sleeves rolled up, radio humming softly in the background. "Do I need to start staying overnight?" he asked. Latoya smiled faintly. "What, and give the neighbors something to gossip about?" He chuckled. "I'm serious." She sighed. "I don't want to drag you into this mess." "You didn't drag me," he said. "I walked in willingly." She didn't answer, just stirred the rice and thought about the gun in her closet. It wasn't registered. Her cousin had passed it to her months ago, just in case. She hated the idea of using it, hated even having it. But that man in the garden had changed something. That night, after Amara went to sleep, Latoya retrieved the gun box from the top shelf. It was old, heavy, wrapped in a towel. She opened it slowly, revealing the .38 revolver inside, unloaded but clean. Her hands hovered over it. Memories rushed in, her mama crying in the kitchen, her uncle cuffed on the curb, neighbors' doors kicked in during police raids. Guns had never meant protection to her, only destruction. She closed the box again, put it back on the shelf. On Sunday morning, Latoya and Amara went to church. It wasn't habit, it was necessity. The kind of soul reset Latoya needed after a week of feeling like prey. Pastor Danielle preached on Psalm 91. "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty." Latoya clung to those words like rope. She didn't cry, but she came close. After the service, a woman from the church, Ms. Opal, retired nurse, widow, fierce as hell, pulled her aside. "I heard what you're going through," she said without preamble. "And I want you to know you're not alone. I've seen too many women walk that valley thinking nobody cares." Latoya's throat tightened. Ms. Opal pressed something into her hand. A small card. Her address. Phone number. "If you ever need someone to walk Amara home or sit with you or just listen, you call me. No pride. No shame." Latoya looked down at the card, then up at the woman's kind, unwavering face. "Thank you," she said. "I will." That evening, as the sun dipped low behind the city skyline, Latoya sat on the fire escape with Amara. They watched the sky turn orange and gold. "Did you always want to live in Chicago?" Amara asked. Latoya chuckled. "I used to dream about LA or Atlanta, somewhere warmer, less loud. But you stayed?" "I stayed because I had you," Latoya said. "And because even broken places can grow beautiful things." Amara leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. Below them, someone played jazz from an open window. The notes floated upward, soft and strange and perfect. For the first time in days, Latoya felt a sliver of peace, thin as paper, but real. The knock came at 8:43 a.m. Latoya was still in her robe, holding a cup of coffee when she heard it. 3 sharp raps, too firm to be a neighbor, too official to ignore. She opened the door cautiously. A black woman in her 40s stood there wearing slacks, a gray blouse, and a thin government-issued smile. Her badge hung around her neck. Angela Thompson, Department of Children and Family Services. "Good morning," she said. "Ms. Latoya Reed?" "Yes?" "I'm with DCFS. We received a referral regarding your daughter, Amara. I need to conduct a home visit." Latoya's blood went cold. "A referral?" she repeated. "From who?" Angela didn't flinch. "I can't disclose that right now, but I do need to come in." Latoya stepped aside slowly, eyes darting toward Amara's room. She hadn't even finished making the bed. Angela walked in, clipboard tucked under her arm, her eyes swept across the living room, couch cushions neat, toys in a bin, dishes washed. "Would you mind if I spoke to Amara privately for a few minutes?" "She's still getting dressed," Latoya said. "What exactly is this about?" Angela's tone softened.
"I understand this is upsetting, but we have to follow protocol any time there's an allegation." "Allegation of what?" Angela hesitated. Then, "Potential emotional neglect." Latoya blinked, stunned. "What? Who?" She stopped herself, jaw tightening. Her mind flipped through possibilities. Andre. It had to be. Angela moved methodically through the apartment, noting everything. Fire extinguisher under the sink, smoke detector in place, food in the fridge, medicine in a locked cabinet. Latoya answered every question, her voice steady but strained. "Do you have any firearms in the home?" Latoya hesitated, just for a beat. "No." Angela nodded. "And any current legal proceedings involving Amara's father?" "Yes," Latoya said, jaw tight. "There's an active restraining order." Angela scribbled notes. Then Amara stepped out of her bedroom, dressed in jeans and a hoodie, hair braided back neatly. Angela smiled gently. "Hi, Amara. I'm Ms. Thompson. Can we talk in your room for just a bit?" Amara glanced at her mom, then nodded. The door clicked shut behind them. Latoya stood in the hallway, fists clenched at her sides. It took everything in her not to barge in, to demand answers, to scream. She didn't. She waited. 10 minutes later, the door opened. Angela stepped out with a neutral expression. Amara trailed behind her, chewing on a fingernail. Angela turned back to Latoya. "Thank you for your cooperation. I'll file my preliminary report within 48 hours. If we need any follow-up, we'll contact you." "That's it?" Latoya asked. "For now," Angela replied. "I encourage you to continue doing what you're doing. Your daughter seems intelligent, well-fed, and articulate. But we take all reports seriously." Latoya nodded slowly, watching her walk out. As soon as the door shut, she locked it. She called Janine first. "I just had a home visit from DCFS." "What?" "Someone filed a report. Said I'm neglecting Amara. Emotional neglect." There was silence. Then, "I'll file a formal complaint. It's likely Andre. This is a known tactic, using the system to harass." Latoya's voice cracked. "It felt like I was the one on trial." "I'm so sorry, Toya. You're doing everything right. But we need documentation. I'll handle it."
Later that afternoon, Marcus dropped by unannounced. He brought 2 caramel lattes and a 6-pack of stress relief tea. He sat quietly while Latoya recounted everything. The clipboard, the questions, the way Angela had looked at her bookshelf as if it might be hiding bruises. "I hate how easy it is for the system to just show up," she said. "Walk into your life and make you feel small." Marcus nodded. "You ever been inside a school in Inglewood on inspection day? Same vibe. Authority dressed in sympathy." Latoya gave a tired smile. They should have just brought a camera crew. That night, after Amara had gone to bed, Latoya finally let herself cry. Not loud, not messy. Just quiet tears over the kitchen sink. She cried for the way the social worker's eyes had lingered on Amara's drawings. She cried for the knot in her stomach that hadn't relaxed in weeks. She cried for the gun in the closet she'd lied about. And when she was done, she washed her face, lit a candle, and wrote in her journal, "They won't break me, but God, they are trying." The next day, Miss Opal showed up with a casserole. "Mac and cheese," she said, "the real kind, sharp cheddar, none of that box nonsense." Latoya smiled weakly. "Thank you." Miss Opal stepped inside, set the dish on the counter, then turned to her with surprising sharpness. "I heard about the visit." Latoya blinked. "How?" "Girl, please. Word travels faster than the L train. Angela's my cousin." Latoya's mouth dropped open. "She said you were calm, house was spotless, kid was bright, that's all she needed to know." Latoya exhaled slowly, like her lungs were thawing. "You ain't alone," Miss Opal said. "Never forget that." That night, Latoya looked around her apartment. The small signs of love, Amara's artwork taped to the fridge, a chipped mug with #1 Mom in faded letters, a stack of overdue library books. The city could storm her doors. The courts could try to define her motherhood in legal terms. But this home, this child, this fight was hers. And she wasn't going anywhere. Latoya sat in the back row of the community center's meeting room, arms crossed, unsure whether to lean in or walk out. The folding chairs creaked as women settled in, most of them black or Latina, eyes weary but sharp. A small whiteboard at the front read, "Resilient Mothers, Trauma Recovery Circle." The facilitator was a short, soft-spoken woman with thick locks and reading glasses. "Welcome, everyone. Today we'll talk about boundaries, what they are, why we need them, and how to enforce them without guilt." Latoya wasn't used to rooms like this. No pews, no judge's bench, no social worker clipboard. Just lived experience, raw, unvarnished. She stayed. "I used to think boundaries were just rules for other people," said one woman, Carla, voice raspy from years of menthols. "But now I know they're also promises to myself. I can't control what others do, but I can control what I allow." Several women nodded. Another added, "I told my ex he couldn't come within 50 feet of me. He showed up at my job last week. I didn't hesitate. I called the cops. And for once, they listened." Latoya clenched her jaw. She thought of Andre, smug and manipulative, slipping through restraining orders like they were guidelines instead of law. When it was her turn to speak, she hesitated. Her voice was quieter than she expected. "My ex, he hasn't hit me in years, but he knows how to twist things. He used DCFS to come at me last week. Filed some lie about neglect. Now I have to prove I'm a good mother to people who've never met me." The room fell still. Carla leaned forward. "That ain't neglect, sis. That's warfare. Weaponizing the system is real." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. The facilitator nodded gently. "Thank you for sharing that, Latoya. Sometimes the most dangerous violence doesn't leave bruises." That evening, Latoya walked home under the orange glow of street lamps, the word boundaries ringing in her ears. She thought of all the ways Andre had seeped into her life like smoke, the late-night texts, the unexpected calls to Amara's school, the sudden child support filings followed by silence. He never showed up bloody. He showed up clever. And she had let him. No more. Back at home, she sat Amara down at the kitchen table. "We need to talk," Latoya said. Amara looked up from her notebook. "Is this about DCFS?" Latoya blinked. "Yes, and more." She took a breath. "From now on, if your dad calls or messages you, I want you to tell me. You don't have to answer anything you're not comfortable with." Amara frowned. "But he's still my dad." "I know, baby. But being your dad doesn't mean he gets to make you feel unsafe or confused. I'm not asking you to stop loving him. I'm asking you to protect your peace." Amara nodded slowly. "Okay." The next morning, Latoya took action. She blocked Andre's number on her phone. She sent a copy of the DCFS report to her lawyer, highlighting every falsehood. She bought a spiral-bound notebook and labeled it in bold marker, Boundaries Log. Page 1. June 4th. Home visit completed. Angela Thompson. No findings. Suspect malicious referral. Andre likely source. Every entry a shield. Every date a receipt. She wasn't waiting to be blindsided again. By the weekend, Janine had connected her with a legal advocate named Tasha, a no-nonsense black woman with a law degree and a righteous fire. "He's smart," Tasha said, after reviewing the restraining order. "But he's lazy. His tactics are textbook narcissistic control." Latoya sighed. "I'm tired of reacting." "Then don't," Tasha said. "Start anticipating. Set red lines. What's your no-go zone?" Latoya looked her dead in the eye. "Amara's peace of mind. If he crosses that, I fight like hell." Tasha grinned. "That's your boundary. Now, let's build teeth around it." That Sunday, Marcus and Latoya met for coffee. She updated him on everything: support group, lawyer, the new logbook. "You ever feel like you're rebuilding a house while it's still on fire?" she asked, stirring her drink. Marcus chuckled. "Every day I taught in CPS." He grew serious. "But I see what you're doing. You're reclaiming your space, one corner at a time." Latoya leaned back, letting the quiet stretch between them. For once, it didn't feel heavy, just earned. Later that night, Amara knocked on her bedroom door. "Mom?" Latoya looked up from her journal. "Yeah?" Amara stepped in slowly, holding a folded piece of paper. "He left this in my backpack. I didn't know until now." Latoya unfolded the note. Andre's handwriting. "Don't let her turn you against me. You know who really loves you." Latoya's hands trembled, but she didn't let it show. She knelt to Amara's eye level. "You did the right thing telling me. That was brave." "Was it wrong to read it?" "No," Latoya said softly. "But it was wrong of him to hide it." She stood, calm but firm, and wrote a new entry in the logbook. June 7th. Unauthorized message to Amara. Psychological manipulation. Note kept as evidence. This time, she didn't cry. She strategized. This time, she wasn't a victim. She was a mother drawing her line in the sand and daring anyone to cross it. Latoya stood on the L platform in Bronzeville, the metal beneath her sneakers vibrating as a train approached. Her reflection in the plexiglass barrier stared back, tired eyes, jaw clenched, scarf pulled tight against the Chicago wind. She hadn't told anyone yet, but a choice had been weighing on her for weeks. Stay or leave. It wasn't just about Andre. It was about everything. Amara's future, her own peace, and the creeping realization that maybe Chicago, the city that raised her, no longer felt like home.
She had lunch that afternoon with Janine at a small cafe near South Shore. "Girl, don't even say it," Janine said, stirring her soup. "You're thinking about leaving, aren't you?" Latoya blinked. "How did you?" "Because I know that face. It's the I'm too tired to fight this fight forever face." Latoya leaned back. "It's not just tired, I don't know. I keep thinking about Amara's teenage years, about whether I want her going to high school here, about whether I can keep holding this line." Janine didn't argue. She just nodded. "That's not fear talking. That's wisdom." Later that evening, Latoya sat on the floor of her living room with Amara, who was busy coloring in a geography workbook. "Where would you go?" Amara asked without looking up. Latoya paused. "Someplace smaller. Maybe Indianapolis or Milwaukee, a city, but not this city." "Would we still have a park nearby?" "Definitely. And a library." Amara looked up. "And what about Miss Torres and Marcus?" Latoya smiled. "We'd write them, call them, and maybe even visit. But it'd be different." "Yes," Latoya said. "Different doesn't always mean worse. Sometimes it means safer." Amara was quiet for a moment. "I want you to be happy, Mommy." Latoya's heart ached at the simplicity of it. She reached out, brushing her daughter's braids gently. "You make me happy, every day." The next day, Latoya sat in Marcus's classroom after school. The chalkboard still had algebra notes scrawled across it, and the scent of old textbooks lingered in the air. "So what's the move?" Marcus asked. "I've been looking at jobs," she said. "There's an outreach coordinator position at a shelter in Indianapolis. Pays lower but safer environment, less surveillance, better services." He nodded slowly. "Sounds like you've already made the decision." "I haven't, not fully, but I'm closer than I've ever been." Marcus rubbed his beard. "I won't pretend I'm happy about it. I care about you, about Amara, but I get it. Chicago's not built for recovery, not like you need." That evening, she stood by the window while Amara slept. She watched the blue and red flashes from a distant police cruiser flicker against the walls of the next building. Someone was yelling, another domestic call. Another cycle repeating itself. Latoya whispered to herself, "I don't want to fight to feel normal." She turned away. It was time to choose wholeness over loyalty to a city that didn't love her back. 3 days later, she made the first real move. She applied for the job in Indianapolis. No fanfare, no announcement.
Just a quiet click of the mouse and a short prayer whispered into the air. The interview came quick, virtual. The woman on the screen had kind eyes and asked the right questions. "You've lived in Chicago your whole life?" "Yes, ma'am." "And why the move now?" Latoya didn't blink. Because healing sometimes means leaving the battlefield. There was a pause, then a smile. "I think you'd fit here just fine." Meanwhile, Andre's presence began to fade, but never completely. A week passed without incident. No messages, no sudden social worker visits, just silence. But Latoya knew better than to trust quiet from him. That's when she got the envelope in the mail. No return address, but she knew the handwriting. Inside, a blurry photocopy of Amara's birth certificate, circled in red ink with a sticky note. Don't forget who gave her life. She didn't flinch this time. She documented it. She reported it. And she packed one more box that night. When Amara asked, "Are we really going?" Latoya smiled gently. "Yes, baby, not tomorrow, but soon." "Are you scared?" "I'm a little scared," she admitted. "But I'm also proud. I'm choosing something better for both of us." Amara wrapped her arms around her mother's waist. "Then I'm proud too." That Sunday, the Resilient Mothers Group had their final meeting before summer break. Latoya brought cupcakes. When it was her turn to speak, she stood up, heart steady. "I'm leaving the city," she said. Gasps and nods all at once. "I thought it would feel like quitting, like running. But now I know it's not. It's graduation. It's choosing peace after war." Carla clapped first, then others joined. The facilitator smiled warmly. "You're not just surviving anymore. You're leading." Outside, the summer wind brushed her cheeks. The air smelled like lilacs and pavement. Latoya looked up at the sky, gray, cracked with streaks of light. A crossroads, not an ending. And for the first time in a long while, the road ahead didn't feel like escape. It felt like arrival. The decision had been made. Now came the goodbye. Latoya moved through the days with a sense of quiet purpose. She was still in Chicago, but her heart had already begun detaching, room by room, block by block, street by street. There was a strange clarity in knowing you were leaving. Everything suddenly felt temporary, lighter, almost sacred. She began packing one box at a time, clothes, books, Amara's school supplies. Each item went in gently, as if acknowledging its place in a chapter that was ending. Amara, for her part, was navigating her own farewells. She wrote letters to Ms. Torres, Marcus, and even to a few classmates she only sort of liked, but still wanted to remember. One evening she handed Latoya a drawing she had made, a picture of their apartment, the playground and the library. "This is so I won't forget what home looked like," she said. Latoya took it in her hands, blinking back tears. "It's beautiful, baby." That weekend, Marcus stopped by to help lift the heavy boxes. He brought pizza and a carton of root beer, and the three of them sat on the floor of the half-empty living room. "So this is it," he said, scanning the room. "Not yet," Latoya replied. "Still a few days." He looked at her with a mix of pride and loss. "You're brave. I hope you know that." Latoya smiled softly. "Not brave, just tired of waiting for things to get better on their own." They ate in silence for a while, the kind that comes from shared history. When it was time for him to leave, Marcus hugged Amara and then turned to Latoya. "Promise me one thing," he said. "What's that?" "Don't let that fire in you dim. Not in a new city, not when things get quiet. Keep fighting. But for joy this time." She nodded. "I will." The next day she visited her old high school counselor, Ms. Dorsey, who had once sat with her in the nurse's office after Latoya showed up with bruises and no explanations. Ms. Dorsey was older now, grayer, but her voice still had that velvet firmness. "So you're leaving," she said. Latoya nodded. "It's time." Ms. Dorsey poured tea into a chipped mug. "I always knew you'd get out. Just didn't know when." "Me neither. I kept waiting for someone to give me permission." "You never needed it, baby. You only needed belief, and you've got that now." At her last Resilient Mothers group, the chairs were arranged in a circle, but Latoya sat a little taller this time. She wasn't seeking support. She was offering it. They handed her a hand-drawn card with all their names and messages inside. "You were the first to speak truth in here," Carla said. "You made it safe for the rest of us to stop pretending." Latoya touched the edge of the card. "Y'all saved me too, more than you know."
Packing accelerated. She sold the old couch online, donated kitchenware, labeled each moving box with black marker: clothes, books, Amara's room, important docs. There was order to the chaos now. One evening, she and Amara sat on the bare floor of the bedroom, surrounded by piles of taped-up boxes. "Will there be stars in Indianapolis?" Amara asked. Latoya tilted her head. "Of course. Same stars. Different sky." Amara smiled. "I'm going to make a new best friend. One that likes turtles." Latoya laughed. "That's a good plan." The day before their departure, they took a final walk through the neighborhood. They stopped by the corner store where the owner, Mr. Patel, handed Amara a free lollipop like he always did. "You two take care," he said. "Start fresh. That's the American way." They passed the park, now covered in yellow leaves, and paused on the bench where Latoya once sat crying into her phone, begging a hotline to believe her. She sat there again, but this time with her daughter beside her, holding her hand. "I'm not the same woman who sat here months ago," Latoya said quietly. "You're better," Amara replied. That night they stayed up late. They watched Matilda again, Amara's favorite. They ate popcorn and made a little tent out of bed sheets, even though everything else was packed. It felt like the closing scene of a long, hard movie. Bittersweet, but right. Before bed, Amara hugged her tightly. "Promise we'll find our forever place?" Latoya kissed her forehead. "I already did. It's wherever we are together." The next morning came early. The U-Haul truck was small, just enough for the essentials. Latoya looked around the apartment one last time. The stained carpet, the crack in the window that never got fixed, the water heater that rattled in the winter. It was no palace, but it was the place where she took her first stand, where she stopped running, where she started healing. She whispered, "Thank you," to the walls, before locking the door for the last time. As they pulled away, Amara waved from the back seat. Latoya kept her eyes on the road ahead. The skyline of Chicago shrank behind them, but the weight of the past didn't. She wasn't leaving as an escape. She was leaving as an act of hope. And hope, she had learned, wasn't soft. Hope was a choice. The city smelled different. Latoya noticed it as soon as they crossed into Indianapolis. The air was cleaner, the streets quieter. Even the sky seemed wider, like it was finally making room for her. Amara sat in the passenger seat, eyes wide and head swiveling. "There are so many trees here," she said. "Yeah," Latoya replied, half smiling. "And not one siren yet." They didn't talk much after that. It wasn't silence born of sadness, but one born of observation, like tourists stepping into a museum they'd waited years to visit. Their new apartment wasn't glamorous. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, an outdated kitchen. But it was safe. It was clean. The neighbors weren't shouting at each other through paper-thin drywall. There were flowers planted by the entrance. Amara picked one as they moved in and placed it in an old jar with water. "For our table," she said. They didn't have a table yet.
That first night they slept on mattresses on the floor, surrounded by boxes. Latoya stared at the ceiling long after Amara fell asleep. The quiet was so loud it made her nervous. She'd lived so long with chaos that peace now felt unnatural. She whispered, almost out of habit, "God, don't let me mess this up." The next day they went grocery shopping. Nothing fancy, just cereal, milk, apples, pasta, eggs. Amara skipped down the aisles, naming everything she recognized. When they passed the frozen pizza section, Latoya froze. A man in a gray hoodie brushed by her. Her heart stopped for half a second. But it wasn't him. She took a deep breath. "You okay, Mama?" Amara asked. Latoya smiled too quickly. "Yeah, just thinking about dinner." Later, she cried in the shower, the water washing over her like absolution. Latoya enrolled Amara in a nearby elementary school. It was smaller than her old one, but bright and warm. The principal shook Latoya's hand with both of his. "Welcome," he said. "We're glad you're here." When they left, Amara whispered, "He didn't even ask about Daddy." Latoya squeezed her hand. "They don't need to. They just want to know you." Amara nodded like that made sense. While Amara started school, Latoya searched for work. She applied to everything: admin assistant, receptionist, cashier, customer support. Her resume wasn't long, but it was honest. She told the truth about the gap years, the move, the need for flexibility. At a local clinic, she met a woman named Marlene who needed help coordinating community events.
"We're stretched thin," Marlene said, flipping through Latoya's resume. "But I like your spirit. You've done outreach before?" "A little. I used to volunteer in a support group." Marlene raised her eyebrows. "Domestic violence?" Latoya hesitated. "Survivors. Yeah." Marlene nodded. "You just became even more valuable." They offered her part-time hours. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get started. The clinic was small, 3 rooms, 2 nurses, and a whole lot of heart. Latoya answered phones, scheduled appointments, and occasionally played babysitter when patients had no one to watch their kids. On her 3rd day, she stayed late to help clean after a flu shot drive. Marlene found her wiping down folding chairs. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know, but I want to." Marlene smiled. "You're going to do more than just survive here, Latoya." Latoya paused, then said softly, "I hope so." On weekends, she and Amara explored their new world. They visited the local library, which had a huge kids section and Saturday craft classes. They went to the farmer's market and tried lavender lemonade for the first time. They even found a turtle rescue center, where Amara spent 30 minutes asking the staff about shell types and habitat temperature. Afterward, she told Latoya, "I think I want to be a turtle doctor." Latoya laughed. "Well, this is the perfect city to start learning." Still, healing wasn't linear. Some nights Latoya would wake up from dreams filled with shouting or glass breaking. Some mornings her chest would tighten before she even got out of bed, but she kept showing up. She made a habit of walking every evening, just 15 minutes around the block, breathing the new air, noticing the trees, letting the calmness stretch into her. She bought a journal and wrote in it every night, not long entries, just fragments. Gratitudes, fears, memories she was trying to rewrite. Page by page, she was building a new map of herself. Latoya, a month in, Amara came home with a drawing she'd made at school. It was of their apartment again, but this time with flowers in the window and the 2 of them standing out front, smiling. "I called it Home 2.0, Amara said. Latoya looked at the picture, and this time, she didn't cry. She didn't even blink much. She just held her daughter and said, "That's exactly what it is." By the time the leaves began to fall, they had furniture. A couch from Facebook Marketplace, a dining table that wobbled slightly,
A rug with a coffee stain they couldn't remove. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and more importantly, it was enough.
It arrived on a Tuesday.
Latoya found it tucked between a gas bill and a grocery store coupon booklet. A plain white envelope, no return address. Her name written in shaky handwriting she recognized instantly. Her breath caught. She stared at it for a full minute, standing in the hallway outside their apartment, key still in the lock. The air felt colder suddenly, the hallway narrowing around her. Her fingers trembled. She slipped it into her purse, unopened. Inside, Amara was sitting at the table, coloring a picture of a unicorn in space.
Mama, look, she has planets on her tail.
Latoya forced a smile.
That's beautiful, baby.
She didn't mention the letter. That night she waited until Amara was asleep. She sat on the edge of her mattress, letter in hand, turning it over again and again like it might vanish if she looked away. The handwriting belonged to a ghost, a man she had once loved, once feared, and finally left. Terrence. She opened it. Latoya, I know I got no right to write you, but I've been thinking about you and Amara every day. I'm in county lockup, waiting on sentencing. Ain't asking for nothing. Just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I know what I did. I know what I took. I see it now. I'm in a program trying to get my head right. First time I've been sober this long. If she ever wants to write, I'd be grateful. But if not, I get it. Just don't let her forget me. That's all. T. Latoya stared at the paper. Her throat tightened. She'd imagined this moment, what he might say, how she might feel. But this letter was different. There was no manipulation, no guilt, no anger. Just wait. Quiet. Regret. And something else. Accountability. She didn't sleep much. Memories kept surfacing. Terrence's laughter when Amara was born. The way he'd sing to her when she couldn't sleep. Then the shouting, the slammed doors, the bruises, the silence that came after every apology. She sat at the kitchen table, watching dawn spill across the floor. When Amara shuffled in, rubbing her eyes, Latoya folded the letter and slid it into a drawer.
Want waffles?
She asked. Amara blinked.
The chocolate chip kind?
Latoya smiled.
Of course.
She carried the letter with her all week, folded tight in a purse. She touched it during lunch breaks, between errands, on the bus. She didn't reread it, but its words lingered in her ears like a melody half remembered. Marlene noticed something was off.
You okay?
She asked, refilling the coffee pot at the clinic.
Yeah, just tired. You're always tired. This is different.
Latoya hesitated, then quietly. I got a letter from Amara's dad. Marlene didn't flinch. You thinking of responding? I don't know. Well, take your time. Letters don't expire. Latoya nodded. It's just, I don't want to open a door I slammed shut for a reason. Marlene wiped her hands on a dish towel. Sometimes slamming the door is what keeps you alive. But sometimes peeking through the peephole doesn't hurt either. That evening, Latoya sat with Amara on the couch, their mismatched pillows piled around them. Mama? Yeah? Do I look like Daddy? Latoya blinked. Where'd that come from? I don't know. Just kids at school talk about their dads. Some have pictures. I don't remember mine. Latoya took a breath. You have his eyes and his nose. Amara looked down. Do you hate him? That question hurt. No, Latoya said finally. I hate the things he did. But hating him would mean keeping all that pain alive in my heart. I'm tired of carrying it. Amara nodded slowly. Is he dead? Latoya reached for her purse and took out the letter. She unfolded it carefully. He wrote to us. From jail. Amara's eyes widened. Can I read it? Latoya hesitated. I'll read it to you. She read it slowly, pausing often, watching Amara's face. The girl didn't say much, but her eyes stayed fixed on the paper. When Latoya finished, there was a long silence. Do you think he means it? Amara asked softly. I don't know, Latoya replied honestly. But I think he wants to be better. That counts for something. Can I write him back? Latoya's heart clenched. If that's what you want. I think I do. Just to tell him who I am now. Latoya wrapped her arms around her daughter. Then we'll do it together. The next weekend they sat side by side at the kitchen table with crayons and stationery. Amara wrote slowly, tongue sticking out slightly in concentration. Dear Daddy, my name is Amara. I am 8. I like unicorns and turtles. I go to a new school now. I am okay. Mama read me your letter. I don't remember you much, but I hope you are being nice in jail. I don't know if I want to talk a lot, but maybe we can write sometimes. Bye for now, Amara. Latoya watched her daughter sign her name, neat and careful. Then she added a small drawing of a smiling turtle. They sealed the envelope together. As they walked to the mailbox, Latoya held Amara's hand tightly. When the envelope slipped through the slot and landed with a soft thud, it felt like something else landed too, something invisible but heavy, a moment of truth, a thread, fragile and uncertain, stretching across distance, pain, and time. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. The first time Latoya stood in front of the room, her palms were damp and her throat was tight. It wasn't a courtroom or a church or a therapist's office. It was a small, sunlit room in the back of the community center on 63rd Street. Folding chairs, a chipped whiteboard. Someone had put out coffee and cookies on a plastic table near the wall. 8 women sat before her, some younger, some older, all watching her in quiet expectation. I'm Latoya, she said finally, and I'm here because I survived. There was no applause, no tears, just silence, soft, solid, open. So she began. She didn't start with Terrence. She started with herself. Growing up on the South Side, she'd learned early how to move through the world quietly, how to avoid trouble, how to smile without giving too much away. She talked about her mom's long shifts at the nursing home, her brother's arrests, the way hope sometimes felt like something other people were born with. Then she talked about love. Not the good kind, the kind that sneaks up on you, dressed in charm and promises. The kind that says all the right things until it doesn't. The kind that comes with bruises you hide with long sleeves and excuses. Terrence hadn't been a monster. That's what made it so hard. He had been sweet. He had cried. He had cooked dinner and kissed her belly when she was pregnant. But he had also made her feel small, like nothing she did was right, like leaving him would break the world in two, until she realized staying was what would break her. When she finished speaking, one of the women, Sandra, a nurse with kind eyes, broke the silence. Thank you, she said. Just 2 words, but they landed heavy. Another woman, Denise, spoke next. Then Keisha. One by one their stories came out, halting, raw, unfinished. That became the rhythm. Every Thursday evening, Latoya came back. She didn't lead the group. She wasn't a counselor. But she was a mirror, proof that it was possible to walk away and keep walking, even when your legs shook with every step. At home, Amara noticed the change. You laugh more now, she said one night while they were brushing their teeth. I do? Latoya asked, spitting into the sink. Yeah, and you sing sometimes, in the kitchen. Latoya chuckled. You don't like my singing? It's not bad, Amara said diplomatically. Just loud. Latoya gave her a playful nudge. Good. Life should be loud sometimes. At the clinic, Marlene pulled her aside. I heard you're speaking at the center now. Latoya raised an eyebrow. Word travels fast. Marlene smiled. Toya, it's the South Side. Gossip moves quicker than Wi-Fi. Latoya laughed. I'm not doing much, just listening. That's more than enough. You know how many women out there need to see someone like you? Latoya looked down at her scrubs, at her hands, steady now, stronger. I'm still figuring it out. We all are, Marlene said, but you're showing up. That's healing. One night after group, Sandra lingered behind. My sister's in a mess, she said. Worse than mine ever was. I tried talking to her, but she won't listen to me. Maybe she'd listen to you. Latoya hesitated. I'm not a counselor. You don't have to be. Just talk to her. Let her see what's possible. Latoya agreed, nervously. 2 days later, she met the sister, Monique, at a laundromat on 79th. She was thin, chain-smoking, eyes darting like she expected someone to jump out from behind the dryers. They talked for 15 minutes. Latoya didn't offer advice, just told her story. Monique barely responded. But at the end, she said, maybe I'll come to the center next week. That was enough. One morning, a letter arrived from Terrence. This time the handwriting was steadier. Dear Amara and Latoya, thank you for your letter. I read it 10 times. I drew that turtle you sent. It's on the wall next to my bunk. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to be someone you're not ashamed of. That's all I'm working on now. I go to a group too. We talk about shame, about control. It's hard, but I think about you both, and it helps. Amara, you sound so smart and strong.
Just like your mama. I'll write again soon, if that's okay. T. Latoya read it twice before showing it to Amara. He sounds different, the girl said quietly. He does, Latoya agreed. People can change if they want to. Do you believe he wants to? Latoya thought for a long moment. I believe he's trying, and that matters. Weeks passed. Group sessions grew. New women joined. Some left. Some returned with bruises and started again. Latoya didn't always know what to say, but she was there. One Thursday, Denise brought her teenage daughter. Another time, a woman asked if Latoya would speak at her church. Every time, she said yes. It scared her. But she kept saying yes anyway. One night, as they were closing up the community room, Keisha turned to her. What do you think healing looks like? She asked. Latoya paused. I used to think it meant forgetting, moving on. But now, I think healing looks like showing up, like standing still when you want to run, like letting someone else hold your pain for a minute. Keisha nodded. That's deep. Latoya smiled. It's also true. Back home, Amara was waiting with a drawing. It was them, Latoya and Amara, standing under a big, bright sun, surrounded by women holding hands. In the corner, a turtle with glasses waved. Latoya felt her heart swell. You drew all of us, she said. I wanted to show what happy looks like. Latoya crouched beside her. You nailed it. For the first time in a long time, she believed it too. On a crisp Saturday morning, the streets of Bronzeville buzzed with life. Vendors lined the sidewalks with handmade soaps, jewelry, and books. Kids with face paint darted between booths. A brass band played just off the corner, its warm notes floating over the hum of voices and laughter. Latoya stood under a white tent with a simple banner, Southside Women Rising. There was no podium, no microphones, just a folding table with flyers, resource cards, and a big poster board filled with Polaroids of the women from group, smiling, holding hands. Some with eyes still heavy, others beaming with hard-won joy. Amara sat beside her, braiding a friendship bracelet for a curious little girl. This is cute,
the girl said, watching Amara's fingers move. Is she your daughter? Latoya looked at Amara, then smiled. Yes, that's my girl.
When she was first invited to speak at the fair, Latoya had nearly said no. Too public, too many people, too many chances to fumble. But then she thought of Monique, who was now 2 months free from her ex and attending every Thursday night without fail. She thought of Denise's daughter, who had asked to start a teen group of her own. She thought of the women who whispered, "You helped me," in grocery store aisles and bus stops. So she had said yes. When it was time, she stepped in front of the tent. A crowd gathered slowly. Families, teenagers, elders with folding chairs. Some were there for the music, some by accident, but they stayed. Latoya took a breath. Good morning. I'm Latoya Henderson. I'm a nurse, a mother, and a survivor. She paused. The breeze tugged gently at her hair. For years, I thought silence was safety, that if I didn't talk about what I went through, it couldn't touch me anymore. But silence never saved me. Truth did. She looked into the crowd, eyes meeting hers, nodding slowly. I'm not here to tell you how to fix your life. I'm just here to tell you it can be done. That the people who hurt you don't get the final word. That healing is messy and hard and beautiful. She saw Amara near the front, looking up at her, so proud. And I'm here because I believe in the South Side, in our strength, in our stories, in our futures. Applause rose, not roaring, but real. She stepped down with her heart thudding, and the woman who'd organized the fair hugged her hard. You just lit a fire, she whispered. Don't stop now. That night, as they sat in bed eating popcorn and watching an old comedy movie, Latoya's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something told her to answer. Hello? There was a pause. Hi, it's Terrence. She sat up slowly. How did you get this number? My sister, she said Amara gave it to her for emergencies. Latoya sighed, cautious. Is everything okay? Yes, I'm out. Early release. Just got back to the halfway house today. I didn't want to surprise you in person. I just wanted to let you know. The line stretched quiet for a moment. I've been going to meetings, he continued. Got a job lined up next week. I'm trying, Toya. I really am. I believe you're trying, she said. But this isn't just about trying. It's about doing, consistently, with no expectation. He exhaled. I get that. I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just wanted to say thank you for the letters, for not giving up on me completely. She hesitated, then said, I didn't do it for you. I did it for Amara, so she could know you tried. That matters to her. I know, and I want to earn even that. A long pause. I'll let you go, he said quietly. Tell Amara I said hi. I will. She hung up. Amara looked over. Was that him? Yes. What did he say? That he's out, and that he's trying. Amara nodded slowly. Do you believe him? I believe people can change. I believe time will show us if he really did. 2 weeks later, Latoya received a letter, this time from a local foundation. Her proposal for a peer-led healing program for women survivors on the South Side had been accepted. Full funding, training, resources, a space of their own. She read the letter 3 times before crying. In that moment, she wasn't just a nurse, or a survivor, or a mother. She was a builder. On the first day in their new space, a repurposed storefront with sunlight streaming through its windows, Latoya stood in the doorway with Amara. The girl looked around, wide-eyed. It's so nice. It is, Latoya agreed. We're gonna do some good things here.
Can I help name it?
Latoya grinned. Absolutely. Amara thought for a second.
What about the sunroom, 'cause it's bright and warm, and people can grow here?
Latoya blinked, tears forming.
That's perfect.
They painted the walls yellow, hung art made by survivors, planted flowers outside. The first session had 12 women. The next, 20. Latoya kept showing up, and so did the women. In time, the sunroom became more than a safe space. It became a launch pad, a second chance, a living testament to what could happen when women refused to stay broken. One evening, Latoya sat on the back steps of the center, watching the sun dip below the rooftops. Amara joined her, holding 2 cups of lemonade.
I saw what you did today,
The girl said. With that woman who came in crying? Latoya nodded. She reminded me of me.
You helped her.
She helped herself. I just stood beside her while she did. Amara leaned her head on her mom's shoulder.
Do you think people like us can really change the world?
Latoya smiled, kissed the top of her head.
We already are.